so I could be able to see the camera here. Big shout out to our photographer Ken, who's now braving it and making sure that you can see me. We have seen the conditions pick up to now. You'll see chunks of ice blowing through the winds coming off of buildings or gas stations nearby because the winds are that strong out here in Troutdale, and the pellets coming down. If you have any exposed skin, it will hurt. It will not feel good. The conditions then worsening now for drivers. Now, I-84 here in Troutdale going from here to the Gorge, Hood River is closed right now, and there are similar closures over on the Washington side with State Route 14 as well. We are also looking at PDX, looking at flights. There's 26 or so cancellations. That's been pretty steady so far, but the ice accumulation like this could have an effect on travel. As of now, I'm not seeing big backups or a lot of traffic on the road. Most people have gotten the advice. Another thing I should mention, I'm kind of fully in athletic stance right here because you got to keep those knees bent so you don't blow over in these conditions. Not a lot of cars on the road. People likely getting the warnings that we've said that ice like this is not to deal with, and you see pieces of ice flying around. So we'll cut it there so we can go back and make sure we're being safe right now. Evan Watson, live in Troutdale. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, Evan, I was going to say chunks of ice coming down. Please get somewhere safe if that's coming down and you and the team are at risk there. That first and foremost, thank you. We appreciate it.
That just looked awful. Yeah. All right, now let's check in with Alma McCarty. She's in Drive 8 monitoring the roads for us in Washington County tonight.
Yeah, Alma, tell us how you where you are right now and how things are looking out there.
Yeah, David, Pat, we are on 26 headed east. We were over in Hillsborough at the Tanasbourne shopping center there for just a little bit. We've noticed things getting more slick out on the roads, but I can tell you there are fewer drivers out here. I'm going to show you what things look like right now. Even though we have noticed in the car the temperatures going up slightly, warming just a little bit, it is still very much below freezing, and so don't let any of this fool you. The roads are definitely getting more slick. We've seen some spurts of precipitation at points. It is raining quite a bit, freezing rain quite a bit. At this moment it is not so bad, but again, things are getting slick out on the roads on 26. And I will say that on some of these side roads, since we got off for a little bit, those appear to be even in worse condition, especially if they haven't been treated. We have seen several crews along these roads, ODOT crews, we should assume, on this particular stretch of highway, salting the roads and using gravel, but that's only going to go so far. As we've mentioned many times during this newscast, the icy conditions can be a lot more treacherous than the snowy conditions. I did want to be honest, you know, for a minute there were far more people on the roadways than I felt was maybe necessary, but it seems like most people have made it home at this point. And for the folks who are still out here, we're just hoping that everybody is going to take it slow and just be very, very careful and intentional about how they are driving and carry chains. We've heard that again and again, but especially in these higher elevation areas, you definitely want to have those chains and know how to use them. And we do want to mention once again that we are out in Drive 8 trying to be as careful as possible and just showing you what things look like so you do not have to get out on these roads. Pat, David, back to you.
Yeah, you know what, Alma, you've got the right traction tires, you're taking it slow. It's good to see there aren't people out on the roads. I just want to point out, Pat and I were just talking about this, because it's ice and because it's dark, you can't see it. It is definitely out there. We're seeing it all over windscreens and windshields and windows. Evan was talking about chunks flying through the air. Yeah. So Alma, again, to you and the team, please be safe out there. We really appreciate it. Let's bring in Joe Ranieri, who's live in the Salem area. They got hit first, I believe.
Joe, this is the second round of ice in that area. How are things looking down there now?
Not great, Pat. I mean, they never really got a chance to really thaw out from the ice storm over this weekend. And again, this is the kind of the part of the valley that really started to see Corvallis north into the Salem, really started to see that freezing rain earlier this afternoon. Now, when we drove down through parts of Salem right around 2:30 or so, it was not a problem at all. And we got into more of the heart of the downtown Salem, and we started to see that freezing rain move in right around 3 o'clock or so, and it really hasn't let up until about 15-20 minutes ago or so. We're on Lawn Market Street, not far from I-5 here in Salem, where you can kind of see there's that glaze across all that ice and snow that's just been sitting here for the last couple of days. And this is going to be one location, though, that will gradually improve. You saw Matt a couple minutes ago say temperatures will jump up here in the next couple of hours above freezing. So it'll help the thaw things out. But again, this is a mess out here. I have been seeing crews with ODOT here the last couple of hours throughout parts of Salem, making sure they can lay down some salt to make the roads a little bit better for you. But again, there's no reason to be out here. You might see a couple cars drive by me here during this live shot, and you can see just how iced over some of the cars are. We have a big semi-rig coming down Market Street right now. But again, it doesn't take much to make slick conditions out here. Now, a couple of hours ago, you might be thinking, well, hey, I drove down I-5, clear roads, not an issue. Well, things dramatically change with this because it might just be raining a little bit, but then what happens with the freezing rain, it falls as rain, but as soon as it hits the surface, it freezes, and it just makes a very slick and dangerous commute for a lot of people. And we have been seeing there's a few people out and about, but again, you can kind of see that glaze. And just walking, we're actually in that Fred Meyer parking lot here along Market Street in Salem, where it is treacherous just to walk into the store. And a lot of people, you feel like, well, hey, I can't drive, I'm going to walk. That's not even a good idea. So I'm trying to get that point across to people. Jay, stay indoors. I know this sounds like a broken record, and we've been saying this, on repeat for the last couple of days. But again, it's very treacherous out here, and it's going to take a little bit before conditions are a little bit easier to drive out here. But even our car that was sat out there a couple of hours ago was practically iced over. So things are going to be improving anytime soon. But if you can, avoid hitting the road, that is probably your best advice.
All right,
Pat,
thanks,
and
Joe.
David, back to you.
Yep, thank you, Joe. We're lucky to have so many meteorologists on staff. Joe's a meteorologist himself down there in Salem, and things are changing fast on the roads in the metro area.
Yeah, we want to bring in Tim Gordon now with a look at the latest road closures and conditions. Tim, I've really been watching the map here. It's going from green to yellow to red as they do. What are the big trouble spots right now?
All right, well, we've been talking, guys, about the I-84, obviously the closure at Troutdale. That's close to 2 miles west of Hood River. That's the east end of that closure. They did that pretty early today, before 4 o'clock, preemptively, really, to get the traffic off of I-84 before it got too glazed up, and obviously that is a problem in the Gorge. Also, another closure, it's up on I-205 southbound. That's at the 134th exit of Salmon Creek area. It's right below where I-5 and 205 split up there in Clark County. That's for an incident. We don't know what kind, don't have a camera on it, but probably an accident. Just closed the highway. 205 at 134th up in Clark County southbound. All right, we are looking at the ODOT cameras as well, and that's a little blurry blown up this much, but this is Wilsonville, and I can tell you when it was light out in the 4 o'clock hour, we saw the traffic. It didn't look so bad, but we know that ice is very deceiving, and you do see traffic still moving there on the I-5 northbound there at Wilsonville. I'm going to switch to a better looking camera now. This is the Interstate Bridge. This is at the north end and southbound traffic, and you see that traffic moving by gently, and thankfully they are. You can see how glazed over it looks on the Interstate Bridge, and it didn't look this way earlier at all. It is really glazed up. Boy, if you don't have to be out there on the bridge or any of these roads, boy, we can't say it enough. Get off of them, stay off of them, and if you're going to be out there, drive very carefully. Now we're going to take you out to the east side. And this is I-84. This is interesting. Look at the camera bouncing around here. This is at Marine Drive, which is the exit to Troutdale. This is where the road closure is. They've got the road, the Interstate 84 closed there. You can see the vehicles out there and the flashing lights, and they're bringing people off at Troutdale. But I'm just blown away by how the wind is really blowing out there in the Gorge, here at the west end of the Gorge still. And the final shot, a little gentler, isn't it? This is out at 26 heading west at Helvetia Road, and thankfully pretty quiet out there, not a lot of traffic, looks glazed. You can see down in here, I can see precipitation dropping. I don't know if you can pick that up with your TV.
Yeah, barely there in the light there, got a little bit.
A little bit. So looks good out that way. Stay off the roads, keep it quiet just like this.
Yeah,
Guys, back
Tim,
to you.
of course, the thing is bridges, ramps, all those things freeze
Absolutely.
before the roadways, but it's safe to say at this point, Pat, that everything is probably glazed over. There's sheets of ice as far as the eye can see.
Yeah, it's a mess. Just don't be out there. We just keep saying that.
There you go, bottom lining it for us.
Speaking of being out there, Daisy Caballero has been out there monitoring the roads and rails in the Portland area.
Yeah, she's near the Moda Center in Northeast Portland. So, Daisy, what are you seeing there? Are drivers heeding the warnings to stay off the roads?
Well, guys, we have actually, since we last spoke here, I have seen, fewer and fewer vehicles. Now, the roads right now, it looks kind of like a slushy mix, if I could say. Of course, those are where the vehicles are driving on. But I did step on a part of the road that cars are not passing over, and it is a complete ice rink. So again, please be mindful, please stay home. And of course, that's what all transportation departments are asking everyone to do.
Anytime ice is in the forecast, we spring into action.
Tyler Graff with TriMet says crews have been working tirelessly to keep buses and trains moving ahead of Tuesday's ice storm. He says all buses will be chained up by 2 p.m., while other crews work to keep ice from forming along open max line paths.
But with a big storm like this coming through, the focus is really on the overhead wires. The trackway itself, switches can freeze, and then you can't move trains from one track to another.
TriMet restored the 33-mile stretch of the Max Blue Line Tuesday, which allowed people to travel between Hillsborough and Gresham.
When the train comes, we should all clear on the same side.
Randy Palmer with TriMet and his crews have been working all day long, clearing the railings near the Goose Hollow station by melting or shoveling out the snow and ice.
We keep the trains moving. They just started moving today, as far as I know. I know a few places they're stuck, and we've been doing just the same thing at other locations just to get the trains back to the train yard.
PBOT crews have been working 24/7 since Friday, plowing, salting, and de-icing roads, especially for emergency service roadways. They're also salting sidewalks and corner ramps in parts of the central city, and they're still urging everyone to stay home regardless of their experience with snow and ice.
It will defeat anyone, whether you have four-wheel drive or snow chains or other devices.
Now, as of this morning, PBOT says that they have reopened right about half of a dozen of roads, while 37 are still closed, whether it's due to down power lines or trees or also those icy conditions. Talking about those icy conditions, guys, just to reiterate how dangerous these conditions are, the back of our vehicle, our news car, froze shut, so we couldn't even open it, of course, to be here for our live hit with you guys. Someone else actually had to come and bring us everything that we needed, so thank you to everyone that, of course, made that possible, and, of course, making this possible to give you these conditions. And I also do want to say that, of course, we have seen fewer and fewer vehicles. We have actually seen a number of plows, obviously, making their way to those troubled areas. But again, please stay home, and we can all wait for this all to kind of end. Back to you guys.
Yeah, thawing out coming sometime tomorrow. Daisy Caballero there, ODOT spokesperson, calling ice a very tough fight. And Daisy, you were experiencing that firsthand. Welcome back. If you're joining us, David Molko along with Pat Doris as we continue our coverage of this breaking news. The ice storm making its way up the valley and into southwest Washington. A number of significant closures tonight. I-84 through the Gorge, Clark County I-205 southbound at the split from I-5, and then south power lines south of Eugene down across the interstate as well. We just took a look, Pat, we were just talking while Daisy was there at the airport. 5 or 6 flights still scheduled to go out. As far as we can tell, the airport is still open and operational, but airlines choosing preemptively to cancel their flights because of this ice.
And I'm sure they're de-icing quickly as they can, but as you know, if there's a 20-minute delay, they have to do it all over again, and eventually they just can't keep up.
And with it still coming down as we speak, right?
That's nasty. All right. At least 7 weather-related deaths have been blamed on this cold and the snow over the last few days. 5 of those deaths are suspected cases of hypothermia. We're going to be on here with you for at least the next 75 minutes as the heart of this storm makes its way through our area. Catherine Cook is to the north in Vancouver, keeping an eye on things there. Catherine, how's it looking?
Well, Pat and David, I want to say that the weather is finally starting to catch up here to traffic. As you've mentioned, there is that closure on I-205 south at 134th Street in Salmon Creek. You're going to want to take I-5 south as an alternate route. Also, for our friends in semi-trucks heading east on SR-14, we want to let you know about a closure there east of Washougal between Gibbons Creek and the Hood River Bridge, closed now to heavy semi-trucks. Everyone else that's going to brave that stretch, you're going to want to have traction devices. Closer in here, downtown Vancouver area on the waterfront, you've got a beautiful shot of the I-5 bridge behind us. We have been watching traffic slowly, just fewer and fewer cars. A few minutes ago, we saw a sander truck, and so definitely people are taking their time, which we like to see. Better than that, just stay home. As my photographer Scotty dropped this pearl of wisdom earlier, he says you may be the best ice driver, but you could still get hit by the worst ice driver. Something to think about. Back to you.
Yeah, Catherine, some very practical advice out there. Stay safe as much as you can. We appreciate it. Hey, give us a sense when you're there what the ice looks like on the ground, because obviously it's, you know, it's frozen solid. We see the snow, so the rain is coming down on top of that. How slippery is it as you're walking along, and how careful are you trying to be out there?
You guys, a good question. I know you've been seeing a lot of the feet shots from my colleagues. So, but out here on the ground at the Vancouver waterfront, we've been hearing the word glaze a lot. I think that's a pretty fair description. You can see the water is starting to pool quite a bit. It is very slick. Typically, I wear, if I was going to be doing anything exciting like a dance, I would be wearing yak tracks, those little spikes on the bottom of my boots. But right now, just kind of staying where I am. I'm pretty safe, but definitely you don't want to be walking out here. Although I have seen folks braving the area with walking their dogs. Even one guy was jogging earlier. But if it's this hard to walk on it, you can imagine what it's like to drive in these conditions. Not good.
No, that's an understatement, isn't it, Pat?
Well, and it doesn't translate all that well through the screen, so that's why it's important that Catherine lets us know things like that.
Thanks, Catherine.
You know,
stay safe.
nights like this, some people will wear like golf spikes to go out there, which work because they have traction, but they're not very warm. So the yak tracks or any kind of traction device, I mean, crampons are a little over the top, but that's kind of what you need.
Snowshoes?
Yeah, right, to walk on the ice. Yeah, they've got that bite on them for sure. So yeah, just be careful out there and don't go out if you don't have to, because things are going to start falling as the ice accumulates on branches and whatnot. And things will begin to come down.
And we heard Evan talking about it. They wanted to get back in the vehicle and move because chunks were coming down in the wind there out Troutdale tonight.
It's never good when you're blowing chunks in the air. I mean, that's, I mean, it's that way, but it's a bad sign for sure. Let's take you outside right now. This is a live shot from our Skycam down at Stoller Vineyard, and we've zoomed way in on these light posts because I thought it was kind of interesting and tells the story pretty well. What I'm watching is the dripping here. These icicles, see them up there, are getting bigger and bigger, and then the bushes down here coated in ice as well, and that's how it's going to be for the next several hours. Only 27 degrees down in Yamhill County, so we're still a long way from getting above freezing. Look at the rain at Newport right now. It's just whipping pretty good there. And you're looking west, of course, towards the bridge, but the rain is blowing from southeast to northwest. Still have a southeast wind at the coast. But Newport, while not exactly balmy, they're above freezing, so no freezing rain issues at the Oregon coast. But we are well below freezing in the 20s across the metro area and all the way down to Eugene. I was checking some of the temperatures between Eugene and Roseburg, and you get down to about Yoncalla, and then you're above freezing. But if you go up in elevation, you also get above freezing. In fact, even here in northern Oregon at Timberline Lodge right now at 6,000 feet, it's 32. We're in the 20s. They're in the 30s. That's why we have the freezing rain problem, because the clouds that are producing snow, that snow is falling into above freezing air, so it melts into rain as it does, and then it falls back down into this very frigid air, and it freezes on contact, as all of our reporters have been so ably showing you. Okay, let's check out Doppler radar. Came into Portland about 3:30, 4 o'clock right there. But notice again, there is a back edge here. It's approaching the edge of Clackamas County, and Joe told us down in Salem it had lightened up a bit, and radar confirms that as well. So this initial band pushing on through, but there will be more that fills in behind this. So just because it stops where you is, just because the precipitation, it's been a long week, stops where you are, doesn't mean that this event is over, because there will be more precipitation coming our way, and we don't rise above freezing for several hours here in the Portland area. In fact, this model, which I think is warming up the South Valley, may be a little too soon, but with any luck, Eugene will be in the 40s by 9, 10 o'clock. We're still in the 20s at 12:30 a.m. We're still in the 20s at 7:30 tomorrow morning, but look at Salem at 46 at that time. This may be good for you folks. I think you will be in the 40s by tomorrow morning by sunrise, but for Portland, it may be 10 o'clock or so before we punch into the upper 30s and then into the 40s by 11 o'clock. So that's the progression. The timing may vary a little bit, but I would plan on having ice on the roads at least until sunrise tomorrow morning in the Portland area, a little bit sooner than that as you go down the valley. Precipitation totals, again, for the Portland area, upwards of 0.4 of an inch of ice and over ½ an inch in parts of the Hood River Valley, the Trout Lake Valley, and the Gorge itself. So freezing rain continues this evening, as much as ½ an inch of ice, mainly in East County and the Gorge. And Portland should warm above freezing. We'll say 8 to 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Hopefully that timeline holds. The cold air is very stubborn, doesn't like to give way to the warm air at all. And the ice storm warning continuing until 10 o'clock for the mid and southern Willamette Valley down that way. Okay, here's the modeling, and notice how this is the 45th parallel right here, which if you've ever driven I-5, you know it's right north of Salem, right? We want the center of low pressure to get a little farther north of that 45th parallel, because once it does, then we pick up the south wind. So that's the key to this whole thing, is getting low pressure to our north. Now, additional storms later next week, but that'll just be a rain issue for us. You can see this one moving in. Here is that initial band, right? But notice there is a break in the precipitation just to the south and west, but then this will form back up and pivot in as well. So we're not quite done with the precipitation, even though it is going to lighten up a little bit later on this evening. And in fact, the modeling shows freezing rain over us at 10 o'clock, and then more freezing rain over us into the morning hours. And then finally, that blast of precipitation should bring the south wind, and then we warm up and get out of the ice and stay out of the ice for quite a while, as a matter of fact. Rainy and windy on the coast, no ice there. Temperatures above freezing, not by much, but enough, so you don't have to deal with freezing rain. But for the valleys, rainy and windy. Gusts to 35 miles an hour are possible later tonight. Then the wind will abruptly switch and come out of the south and southwest and get rather strong tomorrow. Some gusts to 45 miles an hour. And with all the stresses we've had recently on the trees, you know, the rain, the heavy rain and warm weather we had in December, then the sudden freeze last week and the east winds, this could be another stress that could bring down trees tomorrow if we get 45-mile-an-hour wind gusts. Up in the Cascades, it's all snow. Winter weather advisory above 4,500 feet. It is warming up, though, in the mountains. And that will lead to a very dangerous avalanche situation in the Cascades. Whenever we come out of cold weather like this and then get a warm, heavier snowpack on top, it'll crush the lower snowpack that's light and fluffy, make it collapse, and you get avalanches. So hopefully nobody venturing into the backcountry. Snow and freezing rain in central and eastern Oregon. Temperatures there all over the place because the inversions are still quite strong with the deep Arctic air there. Snow, ice, and freezing rain in the Gorge. You get a couple inches of snow, then a half an inch of ice, and parts of the Gorge may struggle to get above freezing even late tomorrow. It may be Thursday for Hood River and Trout Lake and up towards Parkdale. Portland, high of 42 tomorrow, but that'll be late in the day. We'll be 29 in the overnight hour, so it is going to be a cold night tonight and an icy one. Then we stay above freezing. Even on Friday, we dip to 34, but I think, David, you'll appreciate this. We get a dry day on Friday. It's a sandwich between some rain there.
We all need that, right?
But, yeah, we do.
We need the rain more than that, but we need that too.
A dry day where it actually gets above and stays above freezing too, which would be awesome.
That'll be delightful.
Yeah, to your point though, I just want to mention here, just because that band moves through tonight, just to reiterate, doesn't mean it's going to melt. It's going to be there
That's
all
right.
night.
The ice that we have isn't going anywhere until sometime tomorrow morning in Portland.
Yeah. Thank you, Matt.
Lovely.
All right, let's talk about something a lot of us take for granted most of the time, electricity. Tens of thousands of people across our area are facing what could very well be a fourth night in a row without power. You're looking at the PGE outage map right now, about 24,000 customers in the dark. It's down from more than 53,000 yesterday. By the way, that's customers, not people. People, that number is likely far greater. Within the last few minutes, PGE telling us that since Saturday, their crews have replaced 150 power poles, repaired 87 transformers, and fixed over 200,000 feet of power lines. Pacific Power, by the way, 8,000 out, in large part around Eugene. Southwest Washington, you're in pretty good shape. You were at 0, now ticking up to 8 customers without the lights on. Let's get to Thomas Schultz now in one of the areas hit hardest by the power outages, Portland's West Hills.
And Thomas, some people have not had electricity since Saturday, which for the most means, of course, no heat. That has got to make for some long, frigid days. How are things looking out there tonight?
Well, Pat, David, no heat and the wind's picking up out here. And as you can see behind us, a lot of debris still falling down. Of course, power lines. You mentioned how many feet of power lines that they have replaced so far. They still have a lot more to go out here in the West Hills. And besides the debris in the power lines, of course, this is a downed tree, about a 50-foot tall tree that was live probably Saturday morning. That's fallen now. And with these power outages, that's led to a lot of angst and frustration from many residents here in the West Hills.
It's a mess.
For the past 4 days, Tony Ogden and his husband have been stuck in their West Hills house. Their road still packed with snow, and their home hasn't had power or Wi-Fi since Saturday.
So you're kind of stuck.
And they're not alone. Neighbors up and down nearby streets are in the dark too.
There's only so much a fireplace can do.
Sherry Homan has been bundling up and sitting next to a fireplace to stay warm.
My living room went down to 49 this morning.
All the while, they wait to hear from PGE.
I think PG could do a much better job at communicating.
People across Portland told KGW they've rarely heard from PGE since power went out Saturday morning. Though PGE says with hundreds of thousands of homes losing power this weekend, they're working as fast as they can.
There was widespread damage across the entire service area.
Now, PGE says one of the biggest issues preventing them from accessing homes and quickly restoring power is debris, like massive trees being down across roads across the Portland metro area.
Sometimes we're going into these areas and discovering it's not just 1 or 2 trees that are in the way, but it's 5, 6, or 7 trees that are in the way.
And downed trees require tree cutting crews. That's not the only problem. PGE says icy roads are slowing crews too, leading to longer waits for power.
And so before we can provide an estimated restoration time on when we think power will be restored, our crews, with something of this scale, our crews need to go out and assess the situation.
PGE has 1,600 people working around the clock, though those without power say that's not good enough.
The fact is they don't have enough people.
Well, it's a little bit frustrating when you don't get answers.
And those families we spoke with today are still pessimistic that they'll have power tomorrow. Now, PGE says that of those 1,600 crews that are out, and that includes dispatch workers as well, a lot of them are from out of state. Those people are going to continue to stay in the Portland area until power is restored for families across the metro area. Now, Matt told us a few minutes ago about those trees that could ice over and fall. Of course, this one's already down, but we wanted to show you what that ice is kind of already looking like. I don't know how well you can tell. It's a bit shiny on the camera, but this is all ice and just a frozen over tree limb right here. And of course, as we've been talking about all show long, these roads are really icy too. Of course, you see the ice here, but even on just the black asphalt, this is all ice. It's really difficult to try to walk around even with boots on. It's still a bit challenging. Now, for West Hill residents and people still without power, we're starting to get lights over here on this side.
All right, Thomas's shot is breaking up there in the West Hills. We're going to jump in there. You're doing a great job, Thomas. Nice to see the lights coming back on there. To his point, though, as Matt said, this is why the amount of ice we could get tonight and into tomorrow morning is so crucial. If it's a third of an inch, a quarter of an inch, it may be okay for power lines and trees. If it's in half an inch and more, that's when the weight of that could start bringing down branches and beyond. So
very nasty.
Yeah, team coverage. Let's continue now with Blair Best outside a warming center in southeast Portland. It is one of 12 open tonight. It's warm. They've got the lights on. Those are all good things, right?
Yeah, but there are some bad things as well. At least 7 people have died across our area as a result of Saturday's storm and the cold. 5 of those people likely died from hypothermia. 4 in Multnomah County, as well as Tigard resident in Washington County. Further highlighting the need for a warm place for folks to go. Blair, how's it looking?
Right, Pat. 4 of those deaths happened here in Portland, and details are limited, seeing as the investigation is ongoing. But it's a reminder that this storm is deadly. Now, behind me is one of those 12 warming centers open across Multnomah County. Just moments ago, we watched a bus drop some people off just looking to get warm. Multnomah County has served a record number of people in the past few days. But for some people, some homeless people, going inside is a last resort. Take a look. Emergency shelters like this one in North Portland are life-saving for homeless people like Robert.
Oh, I've been here since yesterday and enjoying the warmth and the food.
It's the second one he's been to this week.
It's kind of confusing. I mean, I was kind of hopscotching around.
Yet each time Robert goes inside, he's taking a chance.
You don't know if you're going to get ripped off from here while you're sleeping, or if you have a camp somewhere, if you're going to go, when you go back, that you still have a camp.
This week, he had no other choice. He shows us the beating his hands have taken from the weather.
That's frostbite. This digit here is pretty much dead. It goes numb and it gets hard, and the tissue is dead. So I'm not happy about it, but I'm an old dog, and I've been through worse.
On Tuesday, Multnomah County extended the severe weather state of emergency through noon Wednesday.
This is a pretty unrelenting shocking break of really, really dangerous cold.
Overnight Monday, warming centers helped nearly 1,200 people, a record high.
We still very much need volunteers. It's always a busy time when folks are getting out. We're giving them clothes and sleeping bags, things they could use to be warm.
Saturday's storm also shut off power at 2 of Portland's safe rest villages for homeless people, including this one in Multnomah Village, where Jeff McAllister stays.
It was 23 degrees in my pod right before the power went down.
The city moved him to this motel off Sandy Boulevard while they work to restore the site.
Nobody knew when or if they were going to move us, and then when they did, they just swooped out of nowhere and said, all right, everybody's got to go.
And as thousands continue to seek shelter,
it could be a life and death situation.
The county is already planning to close the warming centers come Wednesday morning.
It's lovely and wonderful and a blessing that so many organizations have given us spaces so we can provide this, but we then have to turn them back over.
Now, we want to add that if the cold weather continues, these warming centers will stay open. And when they close, the county tells us that outreach work on the streets will continue at least for a couple of days. Now, again, these warming centers won't be turning anyone away tonight, and TriMet is offering free rides to anyone traveling to or from a warming center. David, Pat.
Blair Best there in Southeast Portland tonight. Thank you, Blair. Please stay warm. If you're just joining us, David Molko along with Pat Doris here on KGW as we continue to follow breaking news and this ice storm that is impacting the Willamette Valley and southwest Washington. Treacherous conditions on the roads out there. I-84 through the Gorge closed, roadways turning to glass. Clark County I-205 was closed at the southbound split from I-5 because of a crash that is now reopened. We're also getting reports of power lines down across I-5, that is south of Eugene tonight.
And people have died. At least 7 weather-related deaths being blamed now on the cold and snow over the past few days. 5 of those deaths are suspected cases of hypothermia. We're going to be on here with you for at least the next hour as the heart of this storm moves its way through our area. And go ahead.
No, you got it. We're
Let's
teaming
tune
up
into
for the
Matt
first
to
time.
see the latest on this.
Hey, thanks so much, Pat and David. You know what? We're going to go back down to Stoller Vineyard and look at this camera that has the icicles, showing the icicles rather, forming on the light post there. And they're just getting bigger and bigger. You see the rain is falling. You can see the ice glazing the trees down there below. That's how it's going to be. The temperature has not moved across Yamhill County, nor has it across the Portland area. If anything, it's gone down a little bit. At Troutdale's at 24. Portland holding at 26, 27 in McMinnville. And as we go down the valley, still sitting at 28 in Eugene. This will be our first clue that we're going to begin to see the end of the ice. When we start seeing temperatures in Eugene and Corvallis warm up into the 32-degree range, then low to mid-30s. Then they'll pop it into the 40s as the south wind kicks in. But we're still several hours away from that happening. You know where it is warmer? Up on Mount Hood at elevation. Look at this. At the Mount Hood Meadows base, it's 32. Even up at the top of the Meadows Cascade Express chairlift at 7,300 feet, it's 30. So think about that. We're in the 20s. They're at 30 at 7,300 feet on Mount Hood. That's why we're getting freezing rain, because there's that warm layer aloft. Even Govey at 28 is colder than Timberline at 32, and the Magic Mile also at 32. So that's what we're dealing with. The warming is coming from aloft and also eventually from the south and west. But right now, we're dealing with the freezing rain. Now, I've been talking about this band coming in, which it did about 4 o'clock, and moving out, which it has mainly from Salem. Still some showers behind it. But again, even though the freezing rain will end in Portland for a while, it doesn't mean that this event is over, because the freezing rain ends, but the ice that it dropped is already there and is not going to go anywhere until we warm above freezing, and we are hours away from that in the Portland area. See, we're 25, 24. This is 9:30 tonight, so not that far out. Showing signs of warming in the South Valley. We'll see if we warm up that quickly in Salem and Eugene. Hopefully we do, but still 7:30 tomorrow morning, Portland in the upper 20s, and then finally just above freezing by about 9 o'clock, and then finally punching into the 40s by 11 o'clock. And it may happen once it happens just that quickly, but getting to that point is going to take several hours in the Portland area because the east wind is keeping us insulated with that cold air pouring out of the gorge. But eventually, you can't fight physics. Mother Nature will win as the south and southwest winds win out as low pressure moves on up to the north. Okay, so let's look at this hour by hour. For Portland, first of all, I'm starting at 2 a.m. because we're still going to be below freezing at that point. 30, 30, 31, 5 a.m. 31, 7, 8 a.m. still around 32. So it's going to be a fight. The cold air will eventually lose out, as I said, and it'll lose out much more quickly. Down in Salem, this is 10 o'clock, 31. 11 o'clock 32, and by the time we're still in the 20s or around 30, and you're climbing up to 40 in Salem. So that's how this is going to go. Salem will see the warming a lot quicker than Portland, as that east wind will persist for several more hours, guys.
All right, thank you, Matt. I think what I hear you saying is sleep in tomorrow, everybody.
Yeah, you know, they've already canceled schools, right, in many locations. So sleeping in, just taking it easy. Hopefully you still have power. If you don't, hopefully you can make a fire in the fireplace, some other source of heat, and just kind of ride it out, have some patience, because we will get out of this.
Yeah, there's no rush. We can see the other side. Thank you, Matt.
Sure.
Speaking of Salem, let's head south and check in with Joe Ranieri, who's in Drive 8. You were one of the first to get that freezing rain. Now you're back in the car. Tell us what you're seeing, what it's looking like, and how conditions are out there, Joe.
Yeah, you know, the conditions aren't that bad. You can kind of see real quick. This is in Drive 8. We're almost to I-5, about to work our way northbound back into Portland. And we have seen, of course, the roads were fine coming down here this afternoon, but dramatic changes since that freezing rain has moved through. Now we are seeing basically slick covered roads as you travel some of the side streets around Salem. And typically from Salem into downtown Portland, where our studios are, it's about a 45-minute drive. Just kind of giving you an idea how long it's telling us. It's going to take us just about an hour to get home. So yeah, it's going to take us a little bit longer, but again, not many people I've been seeing out on some of the roads here. We're just getting onto I-5 right now, and again, it's been well traveled a good part of the day, and you know, traffic's definitely very light for I'd say 6:30 in the evening. You have a few big rigs heading south, but as we head north, as I get a little closer look here, the roads are obviously wet, but again, it's well traveled, so a lot of the ice doesn't have a chance to necessarily settle down. But again, when we came out here earlier this afternoon, it didn't take long to see that glaze on some of the ice and snow that's basically been sitting here since Saturday and Sunday. And temperatures up and down the I-5 corridor have not warmed above mid-20s or so, maybe 30 the last couple of days. I know it's not an official reading right now, but our car is saying it's 28 degrees. So Matt's been telling you the warm-up is slowly going to move in throughout Corvallis, Salem, and move its way north into the metro area. But again, as you can see here in Drive 8, we're heading northbound on I-5. I know it's pretty dark. We have some headlights that give us a little bit of light to give you a better picture of what we're seeing. But again, people are taking it slow, and the conditions aren't all that bad. Just because I'm saying that they're not that bad doesn't mean you need to jump in your car and go run some errands. This is still treacherous out here, and again, if you don't need to venture out at all, don't. And again, Matt was saying, hey, if you can stay home and next to a fire, that does sound really nice right now, but a lot of the schools are canceled for tomorrow. Now you have parents like myself, my wife, and other parents scrambling to figure out, hey, what do I do if I have to go into work tomorrow? But again, if you go in late tomorrow, best advice to do that, or maybe you can knock off the entire day or just work from home. But again, we're about 11 minutes south of Woodburn, 40 minutes south of Portland right now, David and Pat. And again, we are seeing a little bit of some, ice throughout parts of the I-5 there, but we're taking it slow, and conditions I think will be a little bit better once our temperatures start to warm up. But again, this section of I-5, really from Salem north, is just going to be very slick here the next couple of hours until we see that warm up everybody's paying very close attention to. Back to you guys.
All right, thanks, Joe. And interesting how sporadic that light rain is. We can hear the windshield wipers kind of going back and forth as the windshield gets dry. And yeah.
As soon as it hits the ground, though, boom,
boom,
ice, right?
Yeah, don't want that. All right, ODOT took action early and closed I-84 today in the Gorge. In fact, that happened a few hours ago.
Yeah, we're looking at Evan Watson now live in Troutdale there in the blowing east wind. Evan, the last time we talked about 40 minutes ago, you said chunks of ice were coming down around you. Walk us through, is it getting better? Is it getting worse? What are you seeing?
Yeah, David, conditions have worsened here over the last hour, I would say. Those chunks of ice, I should clarify, were coming off, say, neighboring buildings here or big signs as the winds picked up here near Troutdale. I-84 remains closed, and I know it's going to stay closed based on the conditions that we're seeing out here. The little pellets of ice that were coming down earlier, we're seeing not as many as those right now, but the wind is still very strong and the ice has accumulated here on the ground. You get the crunch every step, and it'll be slick on the types of the roads and the sidewalks and things like that you're seeing. So not many drivers at all coming through here at the moment. Earlier this afternoon, we saw a few still getting off the highway, taking their exits. Really sparse to see any drivers out here right now. Conditions currently very windy, ice still accumulating right now, and just You're working through it that you want to be facing away from the wind like I am currently, so you're not getting the biting air and the biting little pieces of ice coming down in the Troutdale area. So, David, Pat, live in Troutdale, I'm Evan Watson.
Thank you, Evan, for being there so that I don't have to be. And I'm sure the truck stop there is just shoulder to shoulder with semis. Good job for you being out there in the middle of the storm.
I mean, really, to all our reporters and the entire team, our photographers, everybody out there tonight who is bringing you the story from the front lines, showing you the ice, driving around as safely as possible to give you a sense of what's going on those roads there as we continue to follow this developing ice storm. And as Matt was just talking about a few minutes ago, you're looking at waves of bands moving through. So just because one stops and it clears up for a minute doesn't mean that ice on the ground is going to melt. It's going to be a long slog into tomorrow.
And some folks at home might be saying, okay, you've told me that, I got it. But you know what, for people that have moved here for the first time, maybe this is their first ice storm. I remember I moved here after working in Wisconsin, in Green Bay, where it gets really cold. And I thought, what's all the deal? And I tried to walk during the first ice storm. I fell 3 times in a row, and I said, this is a different kind of thing.
You learned the lesson the first time, right? All right, we're going to lighten it up a little bit here because you, our viewers, have been sending in photos and video really since Saturday and the storms in the first round of winter weather here. Let's bring in Brittany Falkers here with a look at that as the ice continues to come down. Brittany.
Yeah, you guys know ice is kind of a difficult visual to story tell, but some of these videos are really helping illustrate that. And I love seeing our viewer photos, but if you are taking weather photos, please be sure to be safe out there. Like we said, sidewalks, even if you're just going outside to snap a photo, can be slippery. But if you have them, send them in. All right, let's start with Margot here, who sent us a photo south of Salem. She managed to snap a few pics of the freezing rain before the sun went down. In this one, you can see the icy bird bath just totally frozen over with icicles. But it's actually this next photo that she sent, taken in the dark, that I think really illustrates the impact of the freezing rain here, especially on top of the snow that we already got. So if you look closely, that sheen, that icy glaze coating the snow. You can see that because of the light. The little yard lamp is like literally shining a light on the crusted over snow. That's what it's like out there on top of that snow. It's like a whole crusty layer of ice. Next one, it takes us out to Forest Grove. This was a bit earlier in the day too. Michael Blake took this when the freezing rain started coming to the area there. If you have a bird feeder in your yard, really any lawn ornaments, those icicles probably are starting to accumulate more and more. That ice could be very heavy on your outdoor lawn ornaments, things like that. Anything you have outside is going to have a little bit of an icy glaze on it. So please send us your photos. It really helps us visually tell the story and see what it looks like in different areas of our community. We can't be everywhere all at once, but hey, we could use a little help from you in helping to inform our community. That's the number right there on your screen, 503-226-5088. Just shoot us a text with those pictures. Let us know where you took it and where it's from.
You know, and in all the seriousness, and it's as dangerous and it's deadly tonight, but it's nice to have a few photos to sort of realize the magic of nature, so to speak. Right, Brittany?
Definitely.
And I'm sure there's a lot of bird lovers out there doing the fight. You saw with the hummingbird feeders. Those are freezing. My wife's been wrapping ours with socks and then hand warmers to try and keep the liquid going for the little birdies.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
I love it.
She's a sweetheart.
I love Jackie.
All right, let's go to Dylan Rivera now, because with this rain falling on the roads, it's going to be extremely icy. Of course, the freeways are what we've been looking at, but let's hear about all those other roads now. Dylan, how are things looking out there for the city?
Well, the freezing rain came, and it is icy out there. Luckily, our crews have been treating these roads and plowing our routes for several days now, and we have a lot of bare pavement on the city's snowplow routes. But the side streets have some bare pavement, but by and large, it's ice on snow. So, not a great time to go out on the roads. Please stay off the roads tonight.
And Dylan, are the crews out there putting down salt or de-icer or sand or anything?
All the above.
Okay.
As conditions warrant on their routes, we've had them out there all day. We got ahead of this and pre-treated this afternoon, but there's only so much you can do with freezing rain. I mean, it just puts a glaze on everything, and even if the danger tonight is that if someone gets out on the roads you get some confidence on the busy streets that we've plowed, and then you turn onto a side street, and all of a sudden you're sliding, and then you crash into a parked car, or you crash into something else, and something bad happens. And so it's really dangerous. And even just getting from your front door down your driveway to your car is, you could fall and be injured. So it's really treacherous. Freezing rain is very serious.
Hey, Dylan, David Molko here. Give us a sense of what you're seeing in terms of either more trees or power lines coming down right now because of the ice, if any, if those reports have come in yet. I know, we saw dozens, if not hundreds, across Portland and beyond because of the last storm. Give us a sense of what you're seeing when it comes to that and what you're prepared for later tonight.
Those haven't really started yet, but as we get more accumulation of this freezing rain, that is something we're expecting. And, we already have about 40 road closures, but you probably won't make it to that road closure because it's already so slick everywhere.
Oh, boy, that sounds great. Hey, Dylan, also just to verify, I know that ODOT has been using the salt in the past. I wasn't aware that Portland City is using salt as well. Are you folks out salting?
Yes. You can see we are salting and using the liquid mag chloride as well, which is a salt product, and we're salting our routes, and it's been very effective throughout this event. But there's nothing effective against freezing rain.
And that's the bottom line. Nothing effective against freezing rain. Dylan Rivera with PBOT, we appreciate it. Stay safe out there to you and all your crews doing a job to keep those roads as clear as possible. Thank you.
All right, let's check in now with Alma McCarty. She's in Drive 8 monitoring the roads for us in Washington County tonight. How are things looking, Alma?
Hey, Pat. We are out on Northeast Brookwood Parkway. We wanted to get off of 26 to give folks a better idea of how the roads are looking here. So as we've gotten further away from those main thoroughfares, as Dylan was mentioning, I mean, you're going to see more accumulation.
All right, Alma McCarty in Drive 8, moving around there in the Hillsborough area. I believe she set off Brookwood there. So touch and go as the signal
Live
goes.
TV,
we
folks.
know the crew's driving slowly, taking their time,
perfect.
so we're not concerned about that. But the signal does drop out from time to time. Again, just when they're flipping that camera forward and you're looking, I don't see anything out there. It is because it's ice and it's dark. And we talk about black ice. That's when you can't see it there on the roadways at all. Just taking a look, we just want to talk about power outages briefly here, see where we're at, see if the numbers are ticking up yet. PGE still about 20. As I refreshed, we went from 24,000 back to 33,000 customers affected. So that's, another 10,000 just in the last couple hours here. Yeah, and it doesn't sound like a lot when we talk about 1/3 of an inch of ice on these wires, but man, it really adds up. And then the branches come down, knock the wires. Sorry, folks, you're losing more power. And round 2 tomorrow, as Matt was saying. Oh, I guess this is round 2, the storm tonight. Round 3. As it melts in the morning. It's not like it all runs off in a beautiful waterfall, right? You can have pieces of ice falling off trees and rooftops and power lines. Again, something to be extra mindful of in the morning hours and into the afternoon as things heat up. The thaw is coming, just not right now. Exactly, yes. And so we decided Daisy Caballera should go out there and monitor the roads and rails in the Portland area. All right, Daisy, how's it looking? It seems like most people are heeding the warning. We just talked to Dylan Rivera with PBOT. We're not seeing cars being abandoned. We're not seeing people spinning out. That is all good news.
Yes, it definitely is good news, guys. And yes, about that new information with TriMet, just into our newsroom, of course. TriMet has 19 bus lines that are being detoured due to dangerous traveling condition. 6 others are going to be suspended for the night. But here's what else TriMet is telling us today, actually. TriMet told me that this afternoon that crews have been working tirelessly to keep buses and trains moving ahead of this ice storm. They say all buses will be chained up and traveling no more than 25 miles an hour. And for their MAX lines, TriMet, again, just announcing new information that their MAX Blue lines are going to be closing, which traveled between Gresham and also the Hillsborough area. But also, PBOT and ODOT say that they have been plowing, salting, and de-icing the roads in preparation, of course, for this ice storm. However, they're still urging everyone to stay home regardless of their experience with the snow and also, the freezing rain or the snow at all. And I wanted to kind of show you guys, of course, it has officially stopped raining. That freezing rain has officially stopped, but those roads are still looking at more of that slushy mix. That is more specifically where those vehicles are actually traveling on. But if you can actually pan down here, we are seeing that these conditions, I mean, this was really snow as we started the day today, right about 4 o'clock. And as you can see, I mean, this is just a complete ice rink. If I did not have anything under my feet to allow me to kind of stay in place, I would most definitely be sliding around. So again, please, please, please be very mindful and thoughtful on staying home until, of course, this all gets better. But I'm going to go ahead and toss it back to you guys.
I think Daisy's rocking the yak tracks there.
She's loving it, right? Getting around and showing how to do it like a true pro. Thanks so much, Daisy. Pat, just really quickly here before we go check in with Matt here, just looking at the airport here. It's still operational, but the vast majority of flights, we're talking like 1, 2, or 3, are left on the board. Everything's been canceled pretty much in or out. And
you're not flying.
No.
You're not flying. All right, Matt Safino, we want to be hopeful. We saw kind of just a little bit of rainfall on Joe Ranieri's windshield coming up, and Daisy was just saying, kind of seems like the rain has stopped. Maybe we're out of this.
No, don't put away those yak tracks just yet, Daisy, or anybody else. Even though the precipitation is tapering off now, it will be back later on this evening. Here's that shot again from our sky cam down at the Stoller Vineyard in Yamhill County. And you can see it's still raining there if you look closely in the lights. And the icicles are growing and getting longer and longer. And the icing on the trees, and I mean ice, not icing like on a cake. I just mean ice, is getting thicker and thicker. Still 27 degrees. That has not moved at all. Our temperatures around the metro area have not moved at all. Still 24 over in Troutdale, 26 in Portland. Let me look at our temperature. We're at 23 in downtown Portland. So it's just cold out there. And down in Eugene, this is where we want to watch carefully, because we begin to see that temperature creep up. Then we'll know things are moving, and then we'll start the process of getting out of it. Notice how I said that, Pat. Start the process. So, and I mean that. It's going to be a process, and it's going to take some time for us to really get out of this. But this is what you're talking about. You see this band of freezing rain that moved on over, and then it kind of, the bulk of it pushed up into southwest Washington. Clark County, you're still getting a lot of freezing rain right now. And by the way, feel free to send us your pictures. We'd love to see them. And then it's snowing in the Cascades and snowing out in Hood River and the Gorge too. But there's still precipitation behind this, even though this solid band has moved on out. There'll be more precipitation forming behind it. Just because we don't see it right now doesn't mean it won't be coming towards us. So let's go through this again and watch the temperatures change. 31 forecast at 7 o'clock at Eugene. That's 4 minutes from now. That's not happening. So that's telling me the models are trying to warm us up too fast, which is not a surprise. That is often the case when we're coming out of Arctic air. They try to melt away that Arctic air just too quickly. But I think the process is on track. It's just happening a little too soon. But you can see we eventually see Eugene pop into the 40s, Corvallis at 30. Say that's at midnight instead of 9:30. Okay, so a few hours slower than what I'm showing you here. And then eventually freezing at Salem, and Portland still in the 20s as we go to the overnight hours. But eventually, sometime overnight, early morning hours, I think, Salem will pop up into the 40s, and then all the ice will begin to melt. Portland's going to take longer. I think it's going to be between 8 and 10 tomorrow morning before we jump above freezing. It'll be just a few degrees at first, but then it's going to be like 39. Then we're going to pop into the 40s as those south and southwest winds kick in, and they will help to bring down all the ice that's accumulating right now. So it's building up now. It's going to come crashing down, and I literally mean crashing down. You've been through this before if you've lived through an ice storm where when it starts to melt, and it's kind of dramatic, and the sound is amazing, but it can also be dangerous. So be aware of that when the ice starts to melt tomorrow. So freezing rain tapering off in the Portland area now. Notice I didn't say completely ending. It will pick up again later on tonight. As much as a ½ an inch of ice by morning. Most of the heavier accumulations will be north and east of Portland. And by north, I really mean out in the Gorge there. So let's say east. Less to the south. In Portland, warm but freezing, I think 8 to 10 tomorrow morning. Hopefully we can stick to that timeline, guys. So yeah, it's, you know, you try to find little bits of encouragement like, hey, it's tapering off, but we're in this for the long haul, meaning overnight.
I mean, I wish we were talking about icing on a cake, as you said. At least we'd have a sugary mess falling from the trees instead of, you know, chunks of ice. It's a good reminder for people who may think, you know, when it's warming up, I'm going to go into the park and take the dog out for a walk, and lo and behold, you're under the trees and the ice comes down. So just, you know, be really careful.
Yeah, be ready to do that once the trees are clear of the ice.
Yeah, maybe noon or 1 o'clock would be better. All right.
Probably a good idea.
Thank you, Matt.
Sure.
Hey, Thomas Schultz has been out in the West Hills talking with lots of folks out there that have been hard hit. Some of them have not had power since Saturday morning. Thomas, what's the latest out there?
Well, guys, I mean, speaking of that good news, there is a little bit of good news out here, but before we get to that, we got to show you some of the damage that we're seeing out here. This is from a telephone pole that presumably that's come down, and if we go up, pan up here, you can see that there's actually wires just hanging down from these poles. Now, enough of the bad news, and there's a lot of wind and, of course, that freezing rain out here. Let's get to some of the good news. Now, you can see behind us, we got some PGE crews out here. They're actually out here making repairs as we speak. We showed you a little while ago, some neighborhoods out here are finally starting to see their power turn on. And I know we mentioned, too, you know, there were 25,000 power outages that PGE had customers recorded. That bumped up to 33,000. Now, of course, one reason, freezing rain. Another reason, we talked to customers out here who said those numbers were grossly underreported earlier in the day. So it could be possible that their reporting is becoming a little bit more accurate as we get into the later hours here. Now, just look at this. I mean, down power lines, just to see what they can do to start tree limbs down here. They've got their cones out here, and we're going to walk back over this way. The only crew out here. Now, I don't have my... But check this out. Not just one crew over here. We got a couple more PGE too. So they're all across this neighborhood in the West Hills. It's really icy out here, so
all right, Thomas, we're going to jump in there because your signal keeps breaking up there every few minutes, but we appreciate you showing us the lights coming back on, the crews hard at work, the ice on the trees. You're doing an amazing job out there tonight. Thomas Schultz there in the West Hills. If you're just joining us, it's turned 7 o'clock. David Molko here along with Pat Torres on KGW. We continue with breaking news tonight and an ice storm warning in the Willamette Valley. The freezing rain is here. We cannot say it enough. It makes those roads extremely treacherous here. Some of the closures to tell you about right now. I-84 completely shut down through the Gorge. That's from Troutdale to Hood River. State Route 14 on the north side of the Columbia. Not a great alternative right now because that too is essentially shut down.
And we're following a lot of the impacts of the storm. The conditions getting worse. TriMet just announced it's detoured 19 bus lines and 6 others are suspended. Blue Line Max service is also suspended.
Portland Public Schools and Beaverton Schools have called off class for tomorrow. Those districts are certainly not alone in delaying or canceling school on Wednesday. We have that growing list in red right now at the bottom of your screen. Growing because the thaw, the melt tomorrow is going to be a bit later than we thought, into midday or even the afternoon in some spots, as Matt just talked about. Airlines, by the way, starting to cancel or delay flights at PDX due to this winter storm. In fact, most of them have been canceled out on the rest of the schedule for tonight and coming in. Limited de-icing there as that rain continues to fall. Of course, flypdx.com for the latest information. One of the things we have to tell you about tonight, Pat, tragically this evening, we learned that Saturday's storm and the bitter cold here have claimed at least 3 more lives.
Right. Today, Multnomah County announced 2 more suspected hypothermia deaths, basically folks out in the cold freezing to death. In Tigard, a 3rd person was found dead in their home. Again, a suspected hypothermia case. This brings the total to at least 7 now. 7 deaths in the last few days related to this severe weather.
Yeah, we have team coverage tonight of the ice storm. We're going to begin with Chief Meteorologist Matt Zaffino, though, and the latest on the freezing rain. Matt.
Yep, it's still coming down. It's lightened up across part of the Portland area as this main band has kind of moved in about 4 o'clock. You'll see it advance right here. Here it comes. And then it moved through, but there is still several areas of lighter freezing rain freezing drizzle maybe filling in behind it. So even though the main band has kind of shifted north right now, it doesn't mean we're done. We're not done. We're not going to climb above freezing until tomorrow morning in the Portland area, sooner in Salem and Eugene. That process, however, has yet to begin. I haven't seen any signs of the temperatures warming up in Salem or Corvallis or Eugene. And while it is warmer aloft, I mean, the southern Willamette Valley, you get above, say, 1,500, certainly 2,000 feet. It's all above freezing air up there, which is why we're getting freezing rain. So we're waiting. We're not going to see 41 in Eugene by 9:30. If we do, that'll be a dramatic shift. Could happen, but I think the models are a little too fast with this. But the process is portrayed here quite well. We'll still be in the 20s or at least low 30s, 7 a.m. But by 10 a.m., I think we begin to climb out of it. By 11 o'clock, we should be above freezing and the ice will begin to melt. Also notice, though, good west and southwest winds swooping in behind this. So, you know, hopefully that doesn't cause additional problems with additional trees or branches coming down. It'll be interesting to see how that goes down because, of course, on Saturday, that was all an east and northeast wind. So that was pushing the trees and branches in one direction. This will be pushing them back in the opposite direction. So a lot of stress on the trees and the branches, and hopefully they can sustain that, right? So freezing rain tapering off a bit right now, but it's going to pick up tonight. As much as a ½ inch of ice in the east side of town, 1/10 of an inch or less to the south, though, down around Eugene, hopefully about 1/10 of an inch, Salem as well. But I think we may have already exceeded 1/10 of an inch in Salem. It came down pretty good there a while ago, and we'll finally warm above freezing tomorrow morning. So we got another 12 hours of these below freezing temperatures, and hopefully the freezing rain amounts don't add up to what I'm forecasting here, but it's looking more likely we're going to get more significant icing, guys.
Hey, Matt, you just touched on it. I just want to dry you out a little bit. The accumulation so far, you said potentially 1/10 in Salem. Can you just remind us why that difference, 1/10 to 1/4 to 1/3 to 1/2, why it matters so much in these circumstances?
Sure. You know, where that really matters isn't because of isn't that it's going to make the roads more slippery. It's the weight. Water is heavy, and ice obviously weighs as much as water, basically. What is it? A gallon of water, I think, weighs 8 pounds. So if you take 1/10 of an inch of ice and then you double that and a times and a half, that's, you know, 1.5 times more weight, 1/4 of an inch versus 1/10 of an inch, and then you double it again if you get to 1/2 an inch of ice, and it really just becomes too heavy for tree limbs to take, certainly for power lines to take. So 1/10 of an inch of ice, while slippery and dangerous, you don't get as many things falling, trees or tree limbs and power lines. When you start getting above 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch, certainly above that, the weight just becomes too much. And there's nothing PBOC can do. There's nothing PGE can do. I mean, ice is going to win. Gravity's going to win. Physics always does when we get that kind of weight on power lines and tree limbs.
Thanks, Matt. We appreciate that.
Yep, and the big problem is the weight on the branches. They go down, take the power lines, and there you go. All right, Tim Gordon has been following things on the roads for us. Tim, how things looking over there?
All right, well, you know, we've still got the closure. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about I-84, closed at Troutdale to Hood River. They closed that pretty early on, preemptively, so before the trouble could start there. That remains closed. We had a closure on I-205 at 134 southbound. That has since cleared up as well. Highway 14, SR 14 on the Washington side is closed to vehicles 10,000 pounds or more. Read big rigs between Gibbons Creek and the Hood River Bridge. So that's about a 50-mile stretch, I think, from there. So let's get you some of the ODOT cameras. I switched over to Nyberg at I-5 here. This gives a little bit better picture. You can see, thankfully, pretty quiet out there. Not a lot of traffic at all. There's one. There's a few going northbound, but it is obviously glazed over. And there's a mass transit bus moving along very gently. I'm sure they're chained up and being careful out there. Now we're going to go up north, and instead of I-5, I'm showing you 205. And boy, that's quite a bit of traffic that's coming down the bridge there. This is at Government Island. So 205, the Glen Jackson Bridge. There's too much traffic out there, folks. Get home and stay safe. It is certainly glazed up, and you might have some pretty strong winds gusting across the Glen Jackson. Now we're going to take you out to Marine Drive and I-84, and this is where the closure is on I-84 for the Troutdale exit. You see those cars coming off. The highway is closed, the freeway is closed there, and they're getting on to stay safe there. That's closed. And now, how about Sylvan? Not so windy up there, and a little bit of traffic up the top of the hill there on Highway 26, US 26, the Sunset Highway. Not seeing the sunset today. Lots of ice on the roadways, guys. Back to you.
I think that's the understatement of the night. It's nice not to see abandoned vehicles and people spinning out because people have largely stayed off the roads. Thanks. We appreciate you following all those for us.
Yeah, and I think Matt and Rod Hill have done such a great job letting people know this is coming that nobody got trapped, you know, being unaware.
Thank
so that's a big
for
deal.
that, right?
Yep.
We all remember February.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Hey, Catherine Cook is out and about in the great state of Washington, has an update on the crash from 205 and all things Washington State. Catherine, how's it looking?
It's about the same as our friends down in Oregon, but really that big clear up was the best news we've gotten in the last hour. That closure at I-205 South and 134th, as Tim mentioned, has since cleared up, but we are still keeping our eye out on SR 14 heading out to the Gorge, closed to semi-trucks. Everybody else is asked to bring chains or traction devices, and you can see why. Behind us, you can see the I-5 bridge. Traffic has slowly dwindled over the last hour. Very slow moving traffic, as you can see, folks making their way over the bend there and slowly down into Oregon. It is very slick out here, you guys. I'm gonna have my colleague Scotty Williams turn around very gingerly, as we do here on this packed snow covered in freezing rain, to show you over here the Vancouver waterfront, the streets. You can see that dull glow there. That is packed ice. The roads itself, you can see that dull sheen. Cars that do make their way through here have been driving very slowly. Some folks out taking walks in the evening, maybe they're staying at the hotels here, have been walking also very gingerly. It is extremely slick out here. And nothing you really want to do if you can stay inside. And of course, all evening we've been sharing from officials that if you don't have any travel that you absolutely need to take care of tonight, just stay home, stay safe, because again, you might be an expert driver, but so many folks out there who don't know quite what they're doing could endanger anybody who hits the road tonight.
All right,
Back to you.
Catherine, thank you. And thanks for pointing out that glaze. I was noticing that as the camera panned, and you nailed it in really highlighting that for us.
All right, thank you, Catherine. Speaking of the climate along the Columbia, let's jump over to the Oregon side and head a little bit east to Evan Watson in Troutdale at the mouth of the gorge there. Evan, I think I can hear the wind whipping up behind you still. What's the latest there?
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth, really. Now, the update on conditions here is that those ice pellets have finally gone away, which is a big thanks to both the faces of myself and our photographer here. But the winds have sustained as ever. In fact, those big gusts coming through, you know, you got to keep legs bent. It's almost like I'm back on the basketball team, you know, ready position right here. Get that lateral movement. Make sure you're not getting toppled over. Just a few minutes before this live shot, our tripod and our camera was kind of lifted up just a little bit. Thankfully, we're watching that closely here with the winds that we're having out here. Those winds also a big reason why it's even more treacherous to drive with the ice that's accumulated on the roads, but also you can feel kind of the shifting even in a parked car or if you need to move, anything like that. Now, the good news here as well is that people really seem to have gotten the message. There are very few cars and trucks that are getting off at I-84 at this exit and diverting either way, right or left. Many of them, which we saw earlier, even 3-4 hours ago, those really aren't happening as much. We've got one coming through right now, but really, and then a car behind it. But most of the traffic has died down, people getting the warnings and seeing the conditions not on I-84 and being diverted here, which is really positive signs because it is a dangerous condition at the moment. Additionally, Pat, you mentioned earlier the kind of backup of semis here, which we often see. There isn't much along the actual frontage road here to the side, which is good news. Another sign that a lot of the truck drivers and others knew this was coming from government updates, media updates like ourselves, and have paid attention to that and have stayed away best you can. So the wind's still very strong here in Troutdale. I-84 closed from here until Hood River. I don't expect that as a big gust comes through to change anytime soon, especially with conditions overnight that Matt and others have talked about. But we'll keep an update on here, keep an eye out for anything that's happening, and get those details to you later. In Troutdale, Evan Watson, KGW News.
Thanks so much, Evan. We just want to say thank you, too, to everybody who chose to stay home tonight, given these conditions that we knew were coming. So thank you for that, please.
Love that Troutdale live shot. It's good for the new guys. Let's check in now with Alma McCarty. She's been out in Drive 8, monitoring the roads throughout the area in Washington County. How's it looking out there?
Yeah, Pat, David, I know our live shot dropped last time because we have been all over Washington County.
Well, Alma, you sound like Darth Vader a little bit, I got to tell you. You're doing a great job out there.
Do I sound like Darth Vader?
Oh, now you're much better. I can hear you now. Should we try again?
Do you hear me now?
Yeah, I'm gonna
okay.
flip that
So,
camera
I don't
around.
know why
Flip
I'm
that
sounding
camera
like
around to the
that.
front
Can
and
you
show
hear
us
me
where
now?
you are. You know what? We better patch back with you in a little bit.
Oh, darn it!
I know you can't make it up on
She's
live
so
TV,
good
right?
too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even around Washington County, there. The thing is, again, with the ice, when you talk about ice, you think you look at the roads, you think it's going to be okay, and you can't see it, right? So you're slipping and sliding. We've heard Daisy there, who had her yak tracks on, trying to make her way around. We've seen highways closed. We've seen power lines down over highways. It's just not something you want to mess with tonight. You heard Evan Watson out there getting pelted with ice pellets earlier. He had glasses on, talking about feeling like he had acupuncture for the first time. I mean, we appreciate all of our reporters out there bringing us the story so that you can stay safe at home and understand what's happening around our community here.
Yes, indeed. All right, we're going to a phoner to talk about the roads. Is this ODOT or PBOT that we're talking to, gang? All right, we're going to talk to ODOT, and let's talk about Highway 26, because we were just checking in on those sky cams with Tim, and so nice to see that it's not, you know, wall-to-wall people stuck for 7 or 8 hours in their cars. How are things looking out there?
Yeah, so I just talked to some crews up over Mount Hood, and they are saying that freezing rain is happening up on Mount Hood, and they're starting to see it even further in the Warm Springs section. They do have a chain restriction, so if you're going to head up there, trucks have to chain up, and unfortunately, they're seeing really low compliance in that. So please put chains on if you head up that way.
Yeah, Casey, we appreciate you making time with us. I know it's a busy evening. It's David and Pat here at KGW. Talk a little bit about the Portland metro area. Obviously, I-84 now closed in the Gorge. You did that very early this afternoon as a preventative move. What else are you seeing in terms of movement and conditions on Portland highways? Again, we talk about ice. You can't necessarily see it, right? I mean, everything's turned into glass out there. But I-5, I-405, 26, for people who are like, hey, it doesn't look that bad. What's your message?
Yeah, that's right. So I was talking to crews and asking for pictures, and they said it's hard to see the accumulation building up, but it is definitely slick. There's already been some crashes, and if you see the cameras, you'll see a sheen kind of on the road. So you might not see much other than a reflection. It is definitely icy. Please stay home if you can at all.
And Casey, are your folks out spreading salt to try and help melt this away right away?
Yes, they are. So they are actively out there. They're spreading salt, de-icer, and sand. Whatever they can throw at this, they're putting it all out there to see if they can get anything to work. But ice is a really hard one to fight.
And I know that folks in the Gorge are used to these nasty conditions. I have a couple of buddies out there, Paul and Steph, who are hunkered down in Mosier. How long are they going to be stuck there until the freeway opens again?
You know, it's really hard to tell. We have to see what the weather brings. But our crews, this whole time during the storm, they're going to stay out there and stay on the road. So as soon as it's open to safe to open, we can do so. They sent me pictures of their windows and their windshields. They're starting to ice over. It's really hard to see. So I think it's a good thing that we don't have too many people out there.
Yeah, Casey, hey, before we quickly let you go here, south of Eugene, we had a report from you folks a couple hours ago about some down power lines across I-5 there. Do you know if that's been resolved, if that's been cleared?
You know, south of Eugene, I haven't seen any closures right before this when I checked, but that's something that we're going to continue to see throughout this storm, intermittent closures and delays as trees and power lines come down with the heavy ice.
All right, Casey Davey with ODOT. We really appreciate your time, asking you and your crews out there to please stay safe. Thank you.
And I guess the reason that it's so interesting on Highway 26, those truckers are trying to get up and around on Highway 35 to avoid the Gorge closure, but they're not putting chains on, which is going to create lots of problems.
It's just not really a good idea to go to Plan B or Plan C or Plan D tonight. You just have to sit it out, essentially.
And like Casey said, they are getting freezing rain up at Government Camp. It's 32 degrees there, so they're just right on the edge of ice because there's rain falling above that, and then into that below freezing area, which is up at Govey as well. Government Camp will probably turn to rain before we do, but then anybody driving from Government Camp down into Portland will drive into the ice. So it's counterintuitive because usually you're used to getting out of it as you drive down the mountain there too. And as far as your buddies in Mosier go, Thursday. Be a good plan for that. Well, just let them know.
I think they're well provisioned.
All right, I'm sure they are if they're friends of yours. Let's take you outside right now.
All right.
Yeah, that was fair. That was a compliment. We've got, this is our Pioneer Square sky cam, looking down on the square and a lone crow roosting for the night. It's hard to tell how much ice we're getting on the trees here, which is why I originally framed up this shop. Then I saw the crow, so I said, why not? But it is getting thick in other places. 25 degrees in Portland right now. This was our sky cam at Stoller Vineyard. It has since gone dark. Maybe they've lost power, not sure. 28 degrees down that way. We're still at 25 in Portland, and Troutdale's actually gotten colder. It's down to 22 because of the east wind, and the ice may be having some impact on that too. Let's check Eugene. Still 28 in Eugene and Corvallis, so no signs of warming in the Willamette Valley just yet. And there are speckles of freezing rain all moving in. Where you see it green, that's at elevation. Now, the higher elevations in the Coast Range are just getting rain, and the mid elevations in the Cascade foothills are just getting rain as well, because there it's above freezing. It's the cold air down low, trapped in the valley. It's kind of like oil and vinegar. If you make a salad dressing, you know how you see them separate? It's like that. And the heavy stuff on the bottom, that's the cold air that we're all dealing with right now. And it takes, you know what it takes? It takes a good chef to come and shake that up and mix that cold air out. And that's what's going to happen later on tonight and tomorrow. I know, I've been on the air a long time, and you start coming up with stuff like that.
We talked about icing for the cake, then we're into mixing up the ingredients, then it was, what is it, warm coastal air and cold Arctic conditions teaming up. You got it all going on.
You're doing great, though, Matt. You're doing great. Thanks for being here.
I've been living on pizza for the last 4 days, so, you know. 0.14 of an inch of rain in Portland since this began. But look, McMinnville and Salem, now that's all got to be ice because temperatures haven't been above freezing when any of that has fallen. These are precipitation amounts since midnight. It's been below freezing all day long, so that's the kind of icing we're seeing across the valley so far. So it may very well be that Salem ends up with a ½ inch of ice. So yeah, it's bad out there, and it's going to get a bit worse. The ice storm warning rather expires at 10 o'clock tonight, which is now less than 3 hours away, so we'll see if it gets extended or not. Let's go up to the mountain, shall we? 30 up at the top of the Blue Chairlift, the old Blue, at Mount Hood Meadows. That's like 6,500 feet, but it's 32. See how it's warmer as you go low? Go over to Government Camp. They're holding at 32. Now it's the same. So we call this isothermal. When you have a layer of air that's all the same temperature, and so that's an indication that we're eventually going to see some improvement because Government Camp has warmed up a little bit, and that's how that'll go. The warming will happen aloft first and then work its way down and scour out these temperatures that are still in the 20s. Happy Valley, a chilly 22 degrees right now. So is Troutdale. So it is chilly. And then once again, Corvallis and Eugene stuck at 28. But look, there's where our salvation comes from, the 40s. Above freezing air, well above freezing air at the Oregon coast. Okay, let's talk about why we're getting freezing rain and sleet and all this nasty weather in the first place, right? So on Saturday, it was sleet, and we were in this situation where the oranges, consider that to be air that is above freezing. And the atmosphere doesn't always behave the way we think it should, like warm down low, colder up high. In this case, the warm air extended a lot, but it was a very shallow layer of warm air, but enough to allow the snowflakes to partially melt. Then they refreeze in this cold air all the way down. Today, it's a different situation. That warm air layer is a lot thicker. The cold air layer is a lot thinner. So the snowflakes melt all the way into raindrops, and then the raindrops, they hit this layer of freezing air, and they're like, too late. I'm going to fall all the way to the ground. I don't have time to freeze, and that's what we're dealing with tonight. Okay, here's the modeling showing this low pressure system finally moving north of us tomorrow, and when it gets north of us, that's when we get the south wind and we really warm up. The coast will be around 50 tomorrow, amazingly enough. For Portland and the valleys, we've got a nice storm warning. Freezing rain. It'll turn to rain early in the morning in Portland, I think 8 to 10 a.m. We'll see if that timing changes as we go through the night. And then the winds will get gusty out of the south-southwest, 35 miles an hour in Portland. But highs will be in the 40s, low 40s, and even mid to upper 40s by the end. And look at that. Next Tuesday, we're going to go for 50.
Hello.
Like spring by that point.
It's about time. That's all I'll say, right?
Absolutely.
All right, let's hit the roads again. Joe Ranieri is live in Drive 8. Joe, I think you're still along I-5. Give us a sense of where you are and what you're seeing.
Hey, good evening to you, David. We just jumped on the 217. We're not far from the Tiger and McMinnville exit there along Highway 99. It could give you an idea of where we're at. You know, we drove in from Salem earlier this afternoon. Roads were clear, but we did see a backup for the northbound traffic right around 1:30 or so. And me and my photographer Nick and I were like, oh man, here we go again. Already seeing the traffic, and we haven't seen any precipitation fall. Here's a look at the roads right now tonight, you guys, along 217. We didn't see any major hiccups on the roads. But again, we are kind of driving fine right now, but just because we are doesn't mean it's slick out there. We haven't seen many trucks that have been having issues or cars, but I have seen one truck that spun out earlier out in the median, not far from the I-205, I-5 interchange there near Tualatin. So again, make sure you do give yourself a little bit of some extra time, obviously, but again, you're going to walk out to your car tonight, tomorrow morning, it's going to be iced over. So have been seeing like clear roads just because it's been well traveled along Highway 217 as well as I-5, but you know, so far we haven't really seen any people having to pull over or trying to get around. You're going to get around just fine because, you know, a lot of the ice is breaking up. But it is still very slick and very cold out here. And again, we've been telling you, like, there's no point in being out here if you don't need to. Again, point of caution, you know, we did see somebody just kind of walk across I-5. Not a good idea any time of the night or ever, actually, but especially when there's icy conditions. So if you can just kind of, you know, exercise a little extra caution, whether you're on your feet or driving, is probably your best bet. And again, I have a question for Mr. Pat Doris. You said, man, I love those Troutdale live shots. I want to know, when was the last time you were out in the gorge doing live shots?
Oh, you know it was going to come back at you at some point this evening, right?
Listen, dude, it was a little bit before COVID and the 25 years before that.
Out there, all our crews are, but again, this is going to be a while before things improve. So obviously, lots of cancellation with school districts. Again, you're going to probably want to give yourself even extra time tomorrow because even though it's breaking up here, I'll show you another look of 217. We're not far from that Greenberg Road area, not far from Washington Square Mall. Even though it's breaking up right now, what doesn't melt is going to refreeze overnight, and we're not going to be seeing much of of temperatures above freezing until really well after sunset. So again, just watch us on TV, KGW, KGW.com, and just kind of chill out the rest of the night and tomorrow, and hopefully this all clears up here in the next 12 to 18 hours or so.
All right, thanks, Joe, and Drive 8 there. I think you might have shot yourself in the foot there the next time we get a winter snowstorm or some 100-mile-an-hour east winds up at Crown Point. I think you might be headed back there.
When Joe was still in high school, right? I was alive at Troutdale. I just want to say that. All right, Casey Caballero is out keeping an eye on all things, including TriMet. What's the latest out there?
Hey guys, yeah, so TriMet has announced that 19 bus lines have been detoured due to dangerous traveling conditions, and they add that 6 others are suspended for the night. But here's what else TriMet is telling us, actually. So TriMet told me this afternoon that crews have been working tirelessly to keep buses and trains moving ahead of this ice storm. They say all buses will be chained up and traveling no more than 25 miles an hour. As for MAX lines, TriMet just announced a closure to their MAX Blue lines, which traveled between Gresham and the Hillsborough area. And PBOT and ODOT say that they have been plowing, salting, and de-icing the roads in preparation, of course, for this ice storm. PBOT tells me that they will be salting sidewalks, corner ramps, and emergency roadways in part of the central city. However, they are still urging everyone to stay home regardless of their experience with snow and or ice. Now, since this morning, PBOT has reopened around half a dozen of roads, with 37 of them still closed because of icy conditions, downed trees, and also downed power lines. But for the time being, again, I understand that the freezing rain has not officially ended, but I will say that within this area, in the Northeast Portland area here in the metro, has officially, I mean, for now, has kind of stopped, but the winds are most definitely still coming, guys.
All right, thank you so much, Daisy. Hey, the great thing about a storm like this is that you all have cameras and you all send us pictures, and our Brittany is here. She's been collecting these, and what do you got?
Yeah, so we've been getting a lot of great photos. Thank you to all of you out there who have been sending them, especially you have been sending them from inside the house so you don't have to go out. I totally get that. So if you are like me, you don't have a garage, this is definitely what your car looks like right now outside. Glazed over, icicles across the windshield. We want to say thank you to our viewer from Hazeldale, Washington, who sent us this one. Let's take a look at another icy vehicle. This one comes from the Cornelius area. So not only is that the windshield just glossy, you know, a little glass like there, you've got icicles coming from the top and even from the windshield, guys. So it's just icy out there, and it's glossing over everything with that ice we saw.
All right, thank you, Brittany.
It's so funny how fast that happened tonight. In the time we're on the air, you can't see it. You got to be safe out there. Treacherous conditions. We really appreciate you joining us over the last 90 minutes now. We're going to send you back to normal program, but we're going to keep you updated on the ice storm warning. Updates available at kgw.com on our app. And of course, we'll be back on the air tonight at 11. By the way, if you have tips, photos, all that good stuff, we'd like to share that later too. 503-226-5088. On behalf of Pat Doris, Matt Zafino, and the entire KGW News team, I'm David Molko. Thanks so much for watching.